Welcome, moms. It is so good to have you here with us on Friday for our Mothers of Influence discussion, and today being the last Friday of the month for our question and answers for Mothers of Influence groups. So we're going to do a little bit of everything while we're here. So it's really good to be together. And I am going to go back to Carrie, if you don't mind, just for a minute. You're at your studio, I know, and you're getting ready to do a class, but do you have just a minute? Oh, have you arrived?
Yeah, I've arrived. I'm
Okay,
here.
okay. I just wanted to, just a quick follow-up. I know last week you were so kind and shared with us, well, either last week or the week before, and we talked about music therapy and how we can use that in our lives. And I want to know from you how you tie music, the idea of music therapy, into imagination. Like if you're thinking about this month of Mothers University and imagination, how do we use music for us as moms and with people around us?
Yeah, I love that question. So I'm going to clarify first so that I can go on record as saying I am not a music therapist. I always wanted to be a music therapist, but life goals and whatever, but I am a music teacher of over 20 years and a great student of music, and I do love it. And I have seen many ways that music has been a therapy. And I'm also new to Mothers of Influence, so I haven't delved as deeply into the rotations and all the things that the resources about imagination, but I can tell you just from the bits that I've seen on both sides. Um, so for me, imagination is a mental or a spiritual creation of something else, right? We anticipate something, we envision it. It creates worlds in our head that don't really exist, but yet they do exist because our perception is our reality. And so, and forgive me, if I get off topic, let me know. But
Very good.
um, with music, with us individually, I there's a thing called audiation, and it's when you can hear in your head some music that isn't actually going on around you, and that is a function of imagination, or maybe audiation is a function of imagination, or flip those two. Um, but to music can move us from one place to another in the same way that we can reframe in our minds, use our imagination to reframe our experiences. And that can help us cope. That can be a really deep skill for coping, um, for finding joy, for having better relationships. So, you put on a piece of music, and it's funny, if you call a suicide hotline, this is something I tell my parents all the time. If you ever have know someone that's called a suicide hotline or anything, the music that they use is not soothing. They use kind of heavy, pumped up music because that's where a lot of their callers are. They're not in a place of peace. And if they have calm music, the callers will actually hang up. And so the music
Interesting.
meets the caller where they're at. And then they can get on the phone with them and they can help them. A way that we individually can use music is we can assess where are we, and we can listen to that music, and then we can adapt the music and change it to where we want to be, move more towards a place of peace maybe. And that directly affects how we're perceiving everything around us. It also affects our physiology, but it affects our mental state and what we're imagining in our minds, the pictures we're having, the connections that are being made in our brain that actually tie into the self-soothing and tie into the dopamine and the different chemicals that release that put us in a better place. Music is also known to be something that they used to think it was a stress reducer. What it is a stress optimizer. The stress hormone actually needs to be at a kind of a stable place. It can be too high, but it can also be too low. And music actually perfectly adapts it to that place where it's
Wow.
stress is most effective for us. And so that can help as well, physiologically, but that ties in as well to how we're framing our world, which has a lot to do with our imagination. And then for our kids, a lot of those same things can be adapted for our kids. We meet them where they're at. We put input in musically, which we talked about it last time. Music is one of the few things that lights up all the areas of the brain. And so by giving them musical input, we're really getting connections going, where it helps the cardiovascular system. It gets kind of everything moving. Including putting us in a specific mental space. And if we can play with the music, if we can use it for transitions or difficult moments, and then move into something that is peaceful and bonding, maybe a lullaby, and anything can be a lullaby, that speaks to their imagination directly. And it really helps them adapt to or live in a space in their own world where they're coping with any stresses that might be going on in a better way. So, and then of course there's more direct things like listening to a piece of music that has a storyline. Think Peter and the Wolf or something like that, or watching one of those Fantasia or something where you actually are doing a storyline, that actual using imagination to create a story in the music as well. And you can do that with any piece of music with your child. You can tell a story with it. We use a lot of what's called vocables that you can, it's essentially substituting the words of a song or a tune that's well known for something. So I might sing a lullaby, I might sing Twinkle Twinkle to my child, but at night I might say, then today we went to the park, we saw a bird, and you don't have to rhyme, we went on the swings or whatever, and using that imagination to help them re-enter their day and the joyful parts of their day and what story they're about that day. So anyway, those are just a couple things that come to mind. I hope that's kind of what you were asking.
That was so perfect. That was beautiful. And how fun to know that
Wow.
how fun to know that some of us as moms have done some of those things without even knowing what a wonderful, amazing thing we were doing, right? I love that too.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, that was perfect. And I want you to know, all of us, all of the moms here, no matter how long we've been doing Well Educated Heart, Mothers of Influence, we are all still learning about there's so much information, all the layers, right? So we are all still in that learning phase. And I love that. So we can be sharing and helping each other with the knowledge that we have. So Carrie, that was perfect. Thank you so much for taking some of your time to do that without me having warned you about that ahead of time. So
of course, like I said, anytime I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna listen to the recording later. So thank you guys.
Okay. Bye, Carrie. Thank you. Okay, wasn't that great? I loved that. I loved all of the examples that she shared and just so many interesting things. The start where you are. Have you ever felt that where you turn on some music and you're just not quite ready for it? I've never thought about that. And the idea that you can start with something that goes with what you're feeling and move from there. Melissa?
That's actually a therapeutic tool, Lori. If you have a client come in and you're therapy and they're agitated, if you're going to try to calm them down, but they're not in a place for that, you will talk at the same pace that they do and use a similar speed and intonation. Then you will intentionally start slowing it down or lowering it, help them calm down.
Very interesting. That is really cool to know that. Ida?
Isn't that amazing? Like, that is like the gospel. Like, the Savior meets us where we're at, right? Like, he comes to wherever we are. Like the woman at the well, he came to her in her place where she was. And that's like so crazy. Like, I don't know, that just was like, wow, that's so awesome to me.
No, I thought that too. I thought that when Carrie was talking about what she said, and then just now with Melissa, that meet them where they are. And I love that example that the Savior does that for us. He meets us where we are. Thank you for that. Okay, I asked on the chat, I'm gonna ask on here. For those of you, anyone who can, please turn your cameras on. I don't care what's going on in the background, unless you're not dressed. That would be an exception, but otherwise, I don't care. We don't care. If you can, put your cameras on because it's so much more friendly. It's so great to be able to see each other's faces, but also I know there are times when you just can't. It just doesn't work. So know that it's okay. But if there are, even if there are just times on and off during the conversation today when you can come on, please do that. It's just so friendly. And I know we've talked about this before. We've mentioned that this screen is like a quilt and it's so much fun to see all the different squares on the quilt. So we love to see that. So anyway, but it's good to see your names and know that you're here too. So we love it. All right. So this month is imagination. So that's one thing. That is something that we'll be talking about a little bit today too, if you want to. It's the very last week for us to do that. Also, it's a good time for questions and answers. So if there are some moms on here who are in a Mothers of Influence group, either facilitating one, part of one, thinking of starting one, and you have some questions, some things you might want to discuss, this is the time to do that. So I'm going to open that up for you to do that if you'd like. If any of you have any questions, it's a very open, safe space here. And there are no dumb questions. Everything is good to put out there to ask about. And what I do generally is if I see you go off mute, I know that you want to talk. You're also welcome to raise your hand if you want, and I try to catch that. But generally, all you have to do is go off mute. And I know that it takes a little while to process a question, think about it, whether you have something to say. So be thinking about that. If you have questions, know that you can unmute and you can come on at any time and discuss the things that you want to discuss while you're here. And it's a good place to do that. So this is great. Okay, so continuing on with imagination. Anybody have some things that they want to share, either a follow-up from last week, something regarding the discussions over the week, or a new topic related to imagination, what you've been doing to fill your own heart, things that you've maybe had problems with or successes with? Any of that is free, free game. And if you don't have anything yet, I've got plenty of stuff here. You know, I always sit with a stack of books next to me. Things that I just love and I would share with you if you were here with me. I try to make sure to leave you plenty of time. And if you're not ready, that's totally fine. And I'll go ahead with what I've got here. I wanted to share with you, I have a notebook that I'm keeping that has the things I'm learning from Mothers University in it. So if you go to the app or you go on the webpage for Well Educated Heart, you know all those resources there are free and they're so good for your heart. They're so good for you. So if you go on there and you look up Mothers University and you look at the current month, this is March, in case you didn't know that. I'm so helpful. I provide all kinds of helpful information while you're here. But so for the month of March, the topic is imagination. So for that topic, there are so many great resources. And I love to watch the YouTube videos, the discussions about talking about imagination and the different ways that that comes up. So I was watching a few of those videos. Have you watched them? There are so many good. And I should have put down the title, so I didn't do that. But I've watched or listened to these several times. But there are ones talking about education today, talking about imagination, talking about free play, talking about fairy tales. Are any of those, does that bring anything to mind? Have you ladies watched some of those videos? I loved the story that was told about Death Valley. Did you guys listen to that part? I'm trying to remember what the man's name. I know him I know him. He's a Englishman. Is it Ken Roberts? Anyway, he talks about a lot of the great topics that I find and end up finding on Well Educated Heart. But anyway, he's talking about Death Valley. He lives kind of nearby. He's moved from England like 12 years ago or something and has lived in the US since then. And he says that in the winter of 2000, well, do you know Death Valley? Are you familiar with Death Valley? It is a very dead, dry place. It's the driest, hottest place in the United States. And but in the winter of 2004, it rained. Over a short period of time, they got 7 inches of rain, which is very unusual. Death Valley doesn't rain there. That's why it's called Death Valley. So dry, just really dead there. But that 7 inches of rain that fell during a short period of time caused a really cool thing to happen. In the spring of 2005, the whole floor of Death Valley was carpeted with flowers. Just for a short time, but the whole floor was carpeted with flowers. And that showed us that Death Valley is not dead, it is dormant. And I loved that. And he goes on to say what you kind of anticipate he's going to say. And he said, hiding under its surface are the seeds of possibility, waiting for the right conditions. And then another phrase he said was, life is inevitable. You just have to create a climate of possibility. I love that. That thought to me just, there's so many things that I thought from there for me, for our children, our grandchildren, for people around you that are depleted and you can tell they're just barely hanging on and just living life day to day, right? Even those people, even us, when we feel like we're kind of like Death Valley, and we feel that we're so depleted, we feel dead and empty. We are not. We're not. There are seeds that they're hidden under the surface. We're just dormant. We're not dead. We're dormant. We're just waiting for the right conditions, right? We need to create that climate of possibility so that those flowers can come. So what do you think about that? What does that cause you to think about or wonder about? Or how can you tie that in to some experiences you've had? Have you had a situation where you have been able to create a climate of possibility for yourself, for your kids? Ida?
So we've been doing like, I started out the year really strong doing Well-Educated Heart stuff. And it was great. And then we sort of fell off the wagon around Christmas, and then we started to get back into it, but it was just like lots of stuff happening. And then I was like, we need to be doing something. So like out of this like fear that we're not accomplishing anything, then I started, okay, let me pull out these books. You guys work on these books. You got to do something. You got to be showing that you're producing some, I don't know, some kind of work. And so we've been working on books a lot more than, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? But we were working on books a lot more than we normally do. And I sort of was, Well-Educated Heart stuff was more on the back burner. It was still in my mind and I wasn't trying to ignore it, but it was like I wasn't really intentionally bringing that in. And then this week I was like, okay, we had a couple of days where we did some schoolwork, and I was like, at the end of the day, I felt like, you know what, we did school today. We did stuff in our books. Everybody was actively doing things, but I don't feel like it was a successful day. Like it just felt like it was a little bit hollow, you know? I don't know if that's a good way to explain it. And yesterday I was thinking about what I should do, and I was like, we did our like scripture study in the morning, and then the kids are like, Mom, we never do art. And we did a lot of art before, and we just hadn't done it for a while. And I was like, you're right. And I'm like, what are we supposed to be doing today, guys? So they look at my little thing that's written on the whiteboard. Oh, today is Thursday, it's storytelling day. And I was like, okay, how about we pull out our art and we can paint a story or something from a story, use your watercolors. And so I was like, how about the scriptures? Like any story in the scriptures that you love, paint something about it that helps you remember that story. And so they were like, okay, so like for an hour or so, that's what they did. And they all picked different stories that they love from the scriptures and painted something with them. And then we had lunch, and then we did like a bunch of math. Like everybody did math. And you know what? It was so much different. Like the feeling in our home like was so much different. The excitement, the energy, it was like we just needed like to take that, we just needed a little heart that heart piece, you know. And then the rest of the day was like, yeah, this is great, we can do this. And it was so much better. Everybody's attitude was better, my attitude was better, and I participated too. I got out my watercolors and I was like, I'm gonna paint too. And so I painted something that I liked, and I feel like it was just like, it was like that water on the desert, you know. It's like, oh, look at all these things that are happening, these good things, these positive things that are coming because we took the time to just feed our hearts first. And somebody said that before, I think it was in our group, like, you know, if you, sometimes I'll like, well, let's do this book stuff first and then we'll do something heart based later, but then you never get to it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the heart thing first, you know, before we get into everything else. And it made all the difference, I think, in how our day went. Just everything was so much better. So yeah, it was like the flowers came out. I love that.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And you did. You created a climate of possibility. That's what you did. I love that idea, that thought. And it's Marlene who says that actually. I don't know what I did anyway, but Marlene suggests we turn around our thinking and perhaps we do go play first to make sure that we get that in. And we can always take care of the stuff that needs to get done later. That is so opposite my way of thinking, and yet it's much more successful to play first. And I don't think we mess them up. Desire and heart first. Thanks, Marley. Welcome. It's good to see you. I know you had stuff going on this morning and had to join late. We appreciate that you come even when we're having those kinds of days. We got to show up, ladies. That's what's important, is we just show up. We show up where we are with whatever's going on, you know, and the more real we can be with each other, the more we can see, oh, we're all in the same boat. We're all doing the same stuff, you know, and we have highs and lows, and it just goes that way with all of us. There's nobody you see where it's like this. That's just not reality. Or if you do that, it's like this, and then it's, and you're not going to see that person for a while, because you just can't maintain that. It's just a balance. It's just this normal flow of stuff, and we're all doing it. And when we can connect with each other and we remember that, and we feel like we've got people out there who are our people and can help us and hold us up when we're having a moment, that is so helpful, so incredible to know and feel that kind of support. So I love that we feel that here. I'm going to try again. We have more ladies on the screen, and we do have some new ones, some new names. And again, I want to invite you, please, if you can, turn on your camera. Don't be afraid to do that. We don't care. As I said earlier, unless you're naked, we don't care. So go ahead and turn your cameras on. You know, we love to see real life. We love to see what's going on. You know, I'm in my son's room. I've got, you know, guitars, Beatles stuff, surfboard. You know, it's just casual and happy and crazy and whatever. So we love that. If your kids are poking their heads in the frame in the background, I love that. That's a special treat for me. So don't apologize for that. Don't worry about that. That is life. And we're all doing life. So we want to see that when we can. And if you just can't come on camera, that's okay too. We understand that. If there are moms who are new, first time here, and you're not too hesitant about introducing yourself, we would love to find out who you are. If you don't want to do that on camera, you're not comfortable with that yet, can you do it in the chat? Just put down a little bit about who you are, maybe where you're from, or a little bit about who you are. We would love that. We would love to get to see that. We just got to see Michelle's husband. As Michelle and her husband are driving around somewhere. That's so fun. I love it. Okay. Anybody that's new want to introduce yourself? Either here on camera, just kind of raise your hand, go off mute. I'll know that you're ready to talk. If not, put it in the chat just so we know who it is that we're talking to. We just have a couple of you who are new. Awesome. Amy, we'll go to you. Thank you, Amy. And this is not Amy Parker. We know Amy Parker, ma'am, but this is another Amy.
This is my first time. My name is Amy Christensen, and I just learned about Well Educated Heart, and I just came to see what it's all about and see what I can learn and start connecting with women. And I don't know, just a different community for me. So I'm excited to learn.
Wonderful. Can you tell us where you're from? And did you know somebody? Did you, how did you learn about Well Educated Heart?
So I learned about it from Tracy Christensen. She's my sister-in-law. And right now I currently live in Vernal, Utah. I'm from Las Vegas, but we live here. My husband's in the oil field. So we're here, and my youngest is 16. I don't homeschool, but I kind of was doing this maybe a little bit selfishly. I was kind of doing it for me. I shouldn't say selfishly. I should just say I'm learning more about myself. And so I wanted to learn more about this. So I love it.
You're in the perfect place because this is for us. And sometimes
Yeah.
we have to remind ourselves, or we have to remind moms with young kids, because it's hard. You know, when you're in that mindset, you kind of have tunnel vision. So we have to pull them back and remind them, no, this is for you. This is for
Yeah.
your heart. It's about you. So Amy, you are in the perfect spot, and good for you for wanting that and realizing that. That's awesome. And we're so happy that you're here. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Yeah,
Thanks for
thanks
doing
for
it. I
coming on.
appreciate it.
Yeah. And in case you decide to, over in the chat, you've got a welcome from another mom who lives in Vernal. So that's awesome. Okay. And Cassie, it's good to see your face on screen. I know you're driving. If you have a chance and there you go. Want to
Yeah,
tell
let
us
me
a little
just,
bit?
I just will introduce myself real fast. We are just running around today. So thank you. I love that you said, we're all in our spaces, right?
Yeah.
So I have been following Marlene for a while. I actually first heard her at a conference several years ago, and I didn't know anything about her. And I caught myself just my pencil flying on my paper, trying to capture everything this woman was saying. I didn't know who she was or what she was all about, but something hit hard inside of me. So then I go home and I'm researching who this person is and what she's all about. And I just found myself drowning in everything she had created, and so I thought, oh, I want to do this with my kids, let's do this in our family. And then it felt very overwhelming, and so I quickly embraced the nurturing a mother's heart, and I just backed off trying to envelop my family in well-educated heart, and instead decided I was just going to educate my heart first. And so that's where I am. And it's actually been several years, and you find that in doing so, it just comes out. All those things come out for your family. And having those tools and those resources, the app and the podcast. Oh, I cannot listen to her podcast without having a notebook in hand. There's just so much beauty, and I love it. I just drink it up, and it just nourishes me. And so I hope that it trickles out a little here and there to my family, and that's my goal right now. So I've been with Educated Heart for a while, but I just had this really strong burning to be a part of a Mothers of Influence group, or to maybe start something and try to find those like-minded women who want to just have that desire. So that's kind of where I am now. I live in Linden, Utah, in Utah County. I've lived all our family is for the moment. So I just anxious to continue growing.
I love that. I love that. And there are so many women right now, Cassie, who are feeling that burning, that feeling like, I've got to do this. I've got to connect with other women. There's something important about that I need to do or find or become or be a part of. So I love that. And I love that you've learned what is so true, that we do this for ourselves. We feed and nurture our mother heart. And if we spend time doing that, it pours over and spills into the rest of our lives and influences the people around us, be that our spouse, our children, our friends, neighbors, whoever it is, but it just can't help but affecting them in a positive way. I love that. Marley?
Cassie, I don't know if you were here when Marlene was, or sorry, I called you Larlene, Lori. What does that mean? That's good. When Lori shared the story about Death Valley, did you hear her talking about Death Valley? So she was just talking about how it doesn't rain there, but a few years ago it did. It had this rainstorm and all these things came up, and she was just saying Death Valley isn't dead, it's dormant. And I felt like that in my heart when I first heard Marlene speak, and it was just that same thing that you described. Suddenly, I just felt like parts of me that had been dead to me, I mean, they weren't dead, but they were dead to me, suddenly were coming alive. And it was just this awakening. And when you feed it, then it's this flood of living water, that just kind of went out into to my life, my life, everybody's life. And you just reminded me, I just think those two things go together, what Lori said and the experience that you're having, Cassie. So I'm glad you're here.
It's so much fun to hear that story, and we hear versions of that story over and over. again, as women take that challenge to just use a well-educated heart, any of those resources, or resources like that for themselves. And that's what happens. That's what they start growing. You see those flowers come out, and I love it. Anybody else, things to share along this line, and we can go somewhere else too. You know how it is here. We just go wherever our hearts feel like we need to go. Ida.
I was talking to my kids this morning about like revelation. Okay, so like God speaking to you, and we were listening to this thing about revelation from David A. Bednar, and he was talking about how revelation sometimes everyone can receive revelation, right? So it doesn't matter who you are or where you came from or whatever your history, your background, right? Because if you're born into on this earth, then you can be guided by God. Okay. I don't know everyone's background. Anyways, so we were talking about that, and he was saying sometimes when you have that feeling that you should do something good or help somebody, that is God talking to you, inspiring you to do something. That's the light of Christ, we call it. And so anytime you have that feeling to help somebody, like you see somebody, like he gives an example, you're sitting on a bus, you see somebody struggling to get on the bus, you get off, you help them get onto the bus with their baby stroller. That is something good that you're being inspired to do. Okay. So I was talking to them and I was explaining, every time you do something like that, then your light grows brighter. Like you get a little bit more goodness in you. And then also, like, so every time it's like you're flipping on a light switch in your house, in a dark house. Every time you do something good, it's like flipping on a light. It brightens the room for you, but it also brightens the room for everyone else. So like you're helping somebody, and then they're receiving the blessing of being helped, but you're also receiving the blessing of helping, right? Because it lifts you when you do something to help somebody. It makes you feel that good feeling. And that is, I think, the same with warming our hearts. So like you're hearing this stuff from Marlene, or you're doing things that warm your heart. Like the flowers are growing in you, and that's blessing you because you have these beautiful flowers, but everyone else gets the opportunity to see the beauty growing too. It's blessing other people's lives, right? So as you're doing these things, that's why it's helping everybody else, because as you're inspired to do good, improving yourself, it's blessing the lives of everyone around you that comes in contact with you. Your smile is brighter, your opportunity and light that you have with you is brighter, and then you have this, like, I feel like it's just fine-tuning your ability to know where you should help and when you should help and what you can do. That's very convoluted, so I don't know if that made any sense, but that was just what I was thinking about. So that's my thought.
I love it. And I love that you put them out there. It's good. We're learning to not be afraid to share those things that are on our hearts and in our minds, even if and I think it's funny that as women, we throw our stuff out there and it is good. And the other women are picking up on it and going, oh yeah, that's so good. And we feel like we've just kind of spit up something, but it's wonderful. And I appreciate your thoughts. And I was taking notes. I love that. And that's so true. Every little bit of goodness that we add to us, it does. If we're that, like last week's conversation, if we're like the moon and we are reflecting the light, then anything good that we bring into us, we're reflecting that back, correct? So that is going out to those around us. So I think that is great. Tracy.
I just wanted to add to that. I love this idea. As you were talking, I was thinking about how we receive revelation, or we receive light, and that comes in us. But then this part of imagination being creative energy, that we are then creating something as we spread that joy, right? That it doesn't, sometimes we think that we just then become the mouthpiece or the handpiece or the instrument, and we do something, but we actually in that moment take power and we create something with what we have received. And so I just love how it ties to imagination with what you shared, that we're actually we're meant to be creative beings. And in a meeting earlier this week, a friend of mine shared a talk from one of the leaders in my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it was Elder Uchtdorf, and he just says, the desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. Everyone can create. And he says, you might say I'm not a creative type. And I love that he said this. He says, when I sing, I'm always half a tone above or below the note. I cannot draw a line without a ruler. And the only practical use for my homemade bread is as a paperweight or a doorstop. And he says, if that's how you feel, think again and remember that you are spirit daughters of the most creative being in the universe. And that just reminded me how we really are here to create, right? Obviously, we create life with our spouse, with Heavenly Father, but also now that I'm done with that chapter of my life, I have so much more to continue to create. But I love the idea that I can always create with God. That his light, his spirit can be with me. And then I actually choose to put that out into the world.
I love that. And I think there are times that we can only reflect because that's where we are. And then there are times when we're growing and we're becoming more and we start learning what Tracy's talking about, which I love, that we actually are creators. And that idea that we're spirit daughters of the most creative being in the universe. So of course we have that capacity. We might not have tapped into it yet, but we have the capacity. We might not have figured out yet where our creative talents are going to direct us, but we will, and we can find that. And then we can start being creators ourselves, and in that way, sharing the light. I love that, Tracy. Thank you. Okay, other thoughts? And don't be shy. See Ida over here. I didn't read, but Ida was ahead of me. Sometimes we are the moon, but as we grow, we can become like the sun, or like the sun, the Savior. I love it. Okay, other thoughts? I know some of you are hesitant, you're more shy, but if you kind of feel a little bit of a desire to come on and share, we are friendly here. It is such a safe environment. It helps us start to see how friendships can be with other women. So it's really wonderful. Melissa.
So I've struggled this month with imagination because I have aphantasia, so I don't see images in my head.
Oh, yeah.
I don't hear music in my head. I hear myself singing music, but I can't hear the orchestra. I can't smell, taste in my head. It's like I have a filing cabinet, and if I've made note of something and put it in the filing cabinet, I can recall it. And so the mental capacity I have for creativity is very different. And I didn't even realize I was different from other people until a year or two ago in that sense. And so this whole imagination thing, my husband always joked, he's like, you have no imagination, what's wrong with you? Because he can hyper visualize, he goes crazy in his head. But I don't do this, and so I struggle to know how to help my kids do this because it's very forced for me. How to help them imagine and do things like that, it just seemed very odd to me. And so this whole month with the imagination topic, I'm like, this is weird for me. This is not normal. It's like teaching a fish to garden. It just, it's just not something
that's very imaginative just for you to put that phrase out there. It's funny to me that you talk about not being imaginative, and out of the women in the group that meets usually on Fridays, you'd be top of the list, my friend, for being imaginative. So that's really interesting to me.
So yeah, this whole month, instead of me thinking about imagination, I've kind of been pondering, like, how do I encourage this in my children, because they don't see me doing this per se. And thinking about ways for them to do it is not very natural, besides, just free play. So
no, that's interesting. I love that you share that, because it's good for people to see, okay, we're all in different places. And some of us feel like we have real limitations in different areas. So, how does that work, Cassie?
I love that thought, Melissa. I have aphantasia too. And it's so hard when people don't get it. And I didn't know what it was. And I thought I was broken. I didn't understand, why people I didn't see the images and the beauty behind closed eyes like people can imagine. So I'm totally with you. So one thing that I've learned with my kids is I just read to them. Like I can't create the stories out of my imagination as easily as some other people do. So I will read to them the stories and then they will act them out with little puppets, little sock puppets. And then the stories always end totally different, mostly violent compared to how we told them. Little Red Riding Hood eats everybody. That's not how it happens. But their little imaginations will blossom and bloom. But I don't have that gift either and that talent, but I have a desire. And so I just start with reading because I don't know what else to do.
I love it. And I love that your kids are in the background filling in. And also, we do these other things. I love it. I love it. Laura, are you going to share? Thank you, Cassie. Oh, no, she just was. Okay. Were you just switching over? Okay. Other moms? Go, yeah, Tracy, sorry.
Sorry, just one fun thing that I realized I wouldn't call myself very imaginative either. But one thing that I notice about my upbringing, my mother always had dress ups. In fact, now as the grandma, she has an entire walk-in closet full of dress ups. And I kid you not, there is not a time. We have a 3-month-old in the family and we have up to a boy on a mission. But I kid you not, every Sunday that we are up there, somebody is coming up dressed as somebody else. That just having that one thing, there for children to play with, examine, can do wonders for imagination. Whether it's, just some little toy blocks or some, on Marlene's site, she has those little peg people or whatever, just something easy that kids can use to play and to use that imagination is so key. And I guess I'm sitting here going, yeah, for the past 20 years, I've noticed that these, nieces and nephews of mine, they put on full-on plays sometimes, and other times we just have a tiger and a baby doll that come up in their little outfits, but they will, it never fails. Someone is always in that closet and pretending to be someone else.
I love that. I love it. I love dress up stuff. We've always had that. I would take a cowboy and a princess or a pirate and a mermaid, to the store with me all the time. I just loved that. I thought that was so much fun. I miss that. They don't want to do that anymore. I don't understand.
Well, it might be a little odd, Lori.
22 years old, it's too old for that? Come on. Yeah, I know. I miss it. But how fun. So now there's my new goal. A closet. Not just my plastic Rubbermaid bin, but a whole closet of dress up clothes. How fun. Okay. Just checking. Amy, did you raise your hand? Yeah, go, sweetie. Go ahead.
Yeah, my mom bakes all the time. And so for me, when I would think about being creative with my kids, I would make sugar cookies and they could just decorate them however they wanted, or cupcakes or whatever. So, and even not even necessarily going so far as to get out different colors but even just different things to make. We would every Sunday when my kids were younger or home, I was like, okay, what should be the treat be today? And they could look through and do we want to do brownies or do we want to do a cobbler or let's try a new recipe, just something fun. And it was creative, not necessarily that they were coming up with the idea, but just it was helping them to create something and something fun that we could all enjoy together because we could all eat it. So a little bit different than art, but still creative.
Absolutely creative. I love that. I have a little boy who loved to cook with mom, in the kitchen. And one year for Christmas, his gift to everybody was a cookbook that he wrote. He's like 7, and he has 3 recipes in there that were his creations. But he saw that, he recognized that as his creations. And it opened my mind to that possibility, that there's so many things on the list of creating something. So I love it. Tracy,
I don't mean to keep talking, but Marley in the chat just put, don't overlook the intangible things we create too. And I've heard her say that a few times. And Marley, if you could you speak to that for a minute?
thank
Because
you,
I'm
Tracy.
just curious, you know, kind of what that means.
I have to drive my daughter to work, so I was just switching over to my
Oh,
phone
shoot.
to be in my car. But
Sorry.
I've got just a minute because this is my favorite topic. I don't know if I can verbalize it yet, but we as women, when we think of creation, and creation is an expression of the light that we have in us, and the softness that we feel as it flows through us, because light flows to us and through us. And that's part of what the well-educated heart is cultivating in us. So we tend to overlook these intangible things that we're doing all the time. That little relationship, when we just take an extra minute to pat someone's back at night and just listen to their dare. When we choose not to get angry, but just kind of hear a different perspective from somebody. We're creating these threads of love, of safety, of relationship, and we don't always get it right. I mean, I think we mess up lots of times, but we never, or very seldom, give ourselves credit for these intangible things that we as women just do like we breathe. So my challenge would be just start paying attention and ask God, if you believe in him, to help you have an awareness of those little intangible things that are in your life. And as you start warming up, as that starts awakening in you, look for more of that in your life, and recognize that influence. That's my best effort today, but it could be different tomorrow.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna jump in the car, but I'll be right back.
No worries. Okay. Oh, I love that. Tracy, thank you for noticing that and asking Marley. That was so good. And Ida, I love your examples, like bringing calm or having a calming presence, bringing joy to somebody just by being there. And that's that example of that light, that softness, that, you know, that just flowing through you, that can bring something to a person next to you. I love that. Okay, we're going to, because we're just about at the end, just reminding Mothers of Influence women that if you have questions, you can ask those before we wrap up here. We definitely have some minutes for that. So if you have any, you're welcome to ask away. Can
Hi.
you? Yeah, go ahead. Hey, Carly Ann.
So I've looked on the website and I reached out to the person who was closest to me, and they moved. And I'm like, oh, dang it. Is there anybody near the Ogden area that has an opening for
Ogden area? Anybody here that's in that area? I don't think so, but we'll definitely look into that. Is anybody responding? Marley, do you know of anybody in the Ogden area for Mothers of Influence groups? Carly Ann just reached out to the other person there, but they have moved. Isn't that what happens? Ida's experiencing things like that right now. All the group that she thought was going to be close. Oh yeah, Amy's in Bountiful.
Okay.
Amy Parker. Where'd you go? Where's Amy? Hold on. Oh, there we go. There. Hold on. Wait, Amy's gone, right? Yeah, okay. Amy's gone off the screen for today, but Amy Parker is close by. We're going to have to put you girls together.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, and Amy's a great resource.
Well, and I'm also in Woods Cross, which is right by Bountiful. I mean, that's, 30 minutes from Ogden, and then I know Haley's up the other way, but none of us are in Ogden.
Right.
Yeah, but I'd say Mothers of Influence is worth a 30-minute drive any day.
Amen.
Absolutely. So there you go, Carly Ann. We got you covered. We got you a couple different options.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy that you were here. Okay, now I'm going to put somebody on the spot big time. And so I hope she'll still speak to me after this. If not, you're just gonna have to pretend like you lost connection and you don't know how it happened. And, you know, sorry, but you'll get back to us next week. So my darling, sweet friend, Melissa McCann, can you come on camera just for a moment and just share whatever thoughts you have this morning about the blessing of being connected to other women? And just like give her
Okay,
major credit, because this is so not within her comfort zone. So
well, okay, well, first of all, Well-Educated Heart has really helped me a lot because I have experienced a lot of trauma in my life, and I became extremely closed off, and I didn't trust people, and I just shut myself off to the world like completely, and I didn't know how to receive love. I didn't know how to give love anymore. And with Well-Educated Heart and getting back into music and poetry and, you know, reading fairy tales and all that, it just allowed my heart to soften, and it unlocked things inside of me, and it just really opened my heart again. And my children have just seen like this huge transformation in me, and they can feel that. um, but I also needed other people in my life, and so having this group of women has just been wonderful for me because I've been able to learn so much from each and every one of you and feel connections with all of you. And you've all been just such wonderful examples to me. And it's just made a wonderful change in my life. I feel like a brand new person, and it wouldn't have been possible without, you know, Well-Educated Heart and this wonderful group of women. So
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate you doing that, Melissa. I love you.
I love you too.
I needed to hear that. Thank you.
Yep, there are so many blessings that come from the combination of Well-Educated Heart, those resources, you know, that using those beautiful things to help heal our hearts and fill our depleted, you know, hearts and souls. And then that connection, that genuine connection that we didn't even know was possible. Because in places where you feel like you should be able to feel it, you don't. And then to see, wait, okay, I knew it. I knew there had to be a way for women to connect. I knew we weren't all here together, you know, without a purpose, without something wonderful that could happen because of it. And this is what it is. And even though you haven't felt it in other places, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that it's not possible and that it won't happen for you. It happens in places like this. It happens because we have a shared something in common, and that is that warming of our hearts. Marley.
I don't know if I can drive and talk at the same time. Melissa, that was just so powerful. And so many people, when they come to the Well-Educated Heart, they don't understand it, and they think, well, this is just bringing more art and music, more of the arts into my life, and that's a good thing. But over experiences, and I think you've just described that perfectly too, the art and music and poetry and story bring light. They are conduits of light. And that is what is so powerful about them, is that they really can open our hearts more. And I love that Marlene says this is how you can open your heart. We talk about softening hearts all the time, but we don't often talk about how to do that outside of religious practices. And this is a universal way to actually do that because of the power of the arts to carry light. And I think you illustrated that and just shared it so simply. My heart was really, really touched by that. Thank you.
Thanks, Marley. And you did a wonderful job of driving and talking at the same time. I was impressed. But thank you. It's so true. That's so true. Okay, ladies, we are at the end of our time. So we are going to turn our time over to Linnell, our very sweet and wonderful Linnell, who has a gift for listening and then sharing with us a sweet thought that I know comes to her through the Spirit. And I think I love this idea that we as women here on the earth, we can be inspired by heaven. We can have messages delivered to our hearts that we need to hear and that others around us need to hear if we're open to that. And I love that we have that incredible blessing and opportunity. So Linnell, we're going to turn the time over to you.
I've been really intrigued by this discussion about aphantasia because I've never heard of that before Cassie and Melissa. So it's got my wheels turning, and I looked up a few things during our meeting because I thought it was interesting that Melissa was saying, I have aphantasia, so I can't picture things. I can't see images, and that means I don't have an imagination, or I'm not creative. And I don't know if you really said that, but that's kind of my takeaway. That's what I got from what you were saying. So then right after, Ida said, wait a minute, you do this, and started listing out things. So then I went to look up what is imagination. And imagination is a lot of things. Imagination is creating, it's being resourceful, it's there's a lot of ways to look at imagination. And so for Melissa to say, well, I have this, so I can't do this, and then for Ida to say, but you are this, then I think one of the beautiful things about associating with other women and having a Mothers of Influence group is other people can see us, and they can tell us, and they can help us to see who we are. And there's something I do with my kids to help them clean up, because if I just say go clean up, nothing gets done. But if I put on my mommy eyes like this and I go look around the floor and I start beeping and saying beep, 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 when I see something, they all run to it and they are happy to pick it up. And then the whole room gets magically cleaned. So I was thinking about this, that we all have these sets of eyes for whatever role we're playing. I can put on my mommy eyes, or I can put on my Mothers of Influence eyes. I can put on my wife eyes, and that helps me to see things in a different way. And as I have gone through this journey and this transition of well-educated heart, I've seen how I have acquired new sets of eyes for all the different roles that I have. And so I have new eyes as a friend. I have new eyes as a mother, as a wife. I have new eyes for myself even. And last night I was reading a story to my children, a bedtime story. And this is one of the arts that I've learned from Well-Educated Heart that I didn't used to have in my life. Reading stories and telling stories, it's been such a blessing in my life. I was reading this story, all 4 of my kids had fallen asleep. No one was listening to me. I was reading it alone. And at the end of the chapter, I just broke down in tears because the story profoundly touched my heart. Now, how is that possible? Like, I never cry in books. And I was reading it to myself, like no one was listening to me. It was just me and this story. And it's because of the new eyes that I have. It's because my heart was once dormant, and my heart can now feel things. And so I can create feelings. I can create change. I can create traditions. I can create memories. I can create so many things in my life because my heart is now awake. When it was once dormant and when I couldn't see things, I have eyes to see and I have a heart to feel, and that makes all the difference. I can create flowers in my life. That's amazing. That's really exciting. And that's really special. And I can create friendships. These friendships that I create don't have to be with people who know about Well-Educated Heart. I can take the things that I've learned and I can create connection with anyone around me. I can talk to my neighbor. I can talk to someone in the grocery store. I can talk to someone who has never, ever gone to my church or heard about Well-Educated Heart or seen art or read a story or knows my language even. And that's the beauty of Well-Educated Heart. So as we think about mothers of influence, as we think about connecting with other people and starting a new group, we don't have to limit our connections to people who know what we know or to people who have the experiences that we have, because it's so much bigger than that. And it's so much more that we can receive if we will just branch out a little bit. And one last thing I'll share with you is that this past week I was in a 5-day course, which was amazing and wonderful. And I learned so much and my mind was opened to so much light and truth. And one thing that I realized is that our comfort zone is like a tiny box, and we like to stay in our comfort zone because it's comfortable there. And it's not until we step out of the comfort zone, out of that little box and step out, that we experience something new. And then as we practice it, our comfort zone grows. And as it grows, then we're capable of doing more things. And then we have to step out again. And the only way that we can grow our comfort zone is to step out of our comfort zone. And it takes being brave and having courage. It takes doing things that we've never done before in order to create that change. And I know that's possible within each of us.
Isn't that beautiful? I just love that. Linnell, thank you so much for being you and sharing all of those beautiful truths. I'm gonna have to listen to those over and over again. That was just so perfect. Such a beautiful summary for today. Thank you so very much. Okay, we love all of you women. We love connecting with you. We love being here on Friday mornings. You're all welcome to come and hang out with us on Friday mornings. So, and those of you that came with questions, and if you didn't feel like it was the right time to ask, or you just didn't get that opportunity to, please see the little message in the chat from Tracy. Please reach out to us at Mothers of Influence, either on any of the ways that you can connect us. Reach out so you can ask those questions that you want to have answered, and we'll definitely do follow-ups. We'll reach out to you and answer the questions, whatever it is that you need. We want to be here for you. So, and just remember that you do have this incredible opportunity to influence others around you for good in just small and simple ways. And those are the most effective. And it makes such a big difference in your life, in the lives of, and in the lives of those around you. So go out and be brave and share your light with those around you. Have an amazing, wonderful week. Thanks for being here.